Hey, what's up, everybody? So, my name's Brett Bodkins, and I'm generally a landscape photographer that takes images something like this. My whole life, pretty much, that's the type of photography I've done, and, that's where I've spent, money on equipment and time and effort, energy to go out to the locations and get these type of images. Because of that, I was able to be very selective with my photography. Your needs may be very well different if you're doing, portraits or, weddings or whatever the case may be. Your needs may be very different. However, because of my approach and the type of photography I like to do, I'm able to take a very meticulous and slow-paced type approach to my photos, and I'm able to be more selective than some of you might be able to be. I wanted to talk today about how deleting images has actually helped me with my photography. For some of you guys, that might be sacrilege. Images don't take up a whole lot of room on hard drives compared to, let's say video or anything like that. So, it might be that you have tens or hundreds of thousands of images if you've been shooting for a while. That's okay. Me personally, after many years of shooting, pretty much I think I only had 20 or 30, maybe 40,000 images to go through when I started this process. There were quite a few images that, were, let's say, family photos that I knew I didn't need to keep, raw files in Lightroom forever, and I finally exported some of those and just kept JPEGs on a hard drive somewhere. Subtracting some of those was pretty easy. Anything, totally out of focus or bad lighting or whatever, it was pretty easy to go through and do that. Now, I would say before you start actually trying to go through and delete photos, if you've never really curated a collection of your best photos, that would be your first step, is to go through and identify what your best photos are and to curate a collection. I've been shooting for print for many, many years. I did quite a few, art shows, art galleries, that sort of thing. And so that's where I really come from in my photography. And so, that process has been ongoing for me since the very beginning. But if you've never done that before, whether it be for a website or for Instagram or whatever the case may be, coming up with a cohesive collection is very helpful to this goal. Sometimes I may have images that I find neat or interesting that might lie somewhat outside of what I normally do. Something more abstract or, black and white photography, for example, or whatever the case may be. But coming up with collections of images of the best stuff, even if it's not your normal style, is very helpful and important. So I would suggest that you definitely go through and identify the best stuff before you even consider deleting. The next step in that process for me is sort of going through and finding photos that maybe you would rate somewhere in the middle and do some re-edits to kind of take a fresh look at them, because honestly, the very first time you look at your images, maybe the first day or the first week after you shot or whatever the case may be, you are sort of biased. And sometimes after time goes on, you can see the photos in a new light and think, you know what, I kind of like this. This is kind of neat. So I find it very helpful to kind of rework some of those images and realize, oh, you know what, maybe this image is really cool if I made it, black and white or whatever. What I would suggest is that you go through and sort of do that process first. However, once you've done that, being able to delete photos is actually a very helpful way to sort of organize yourself mentally and push yourself more when you're shooting in the field. So let's use, for me, for example, deleting images. Let's use animal photography for an example. As I mentioned, mostly doing landscapes, I don't spend a lot of money on the right types of lenses, and I don't carry the right types of lenses to do that type of work. And so often I would have images that were very subpar when it comes to animal photography, for example. So, I had quite a few images of birds that were just so far away that just, didn't really look good or didn't look right, or the lighting wasn't so great or whatever. And by going through and deleting those first, it was really helpful. Like, let's say, for example, if I have this image here of a seagull in flight, that means that any photos way worse than that I would probably never use. If I would never use it, in a collection, if I would never sell it, if I would never upload to stock photography sites, etc., if it's just way worse than other photos I've taken, and especially, compared to other photographers or whatever that do that type of work for a living, then probably I would never use it. And so it might be very easy to delete some of those. Let's say, for example, I had a whole lot of birds that were just so far away, it was like, taking a picture of the moon with your cell phone. I mean, it just was never going to be usable for anything. So for me, it was very easy to sort of start there and realize, okay, for animal photos, these are the good ones. It was very easy for me to go through and sort of, delete quite a few animal photos. So that's where I sort of spent my first couple weeks of attention on that. Now, I did end up doing a lot of this during COVID, so it was able to afford me the extra time to go through and sort of find the time to, dedicate to this. I will mention that I started out with around, I think, 30,000 files whenever I first started the process, and I wanted to be able to keyword tag everything. And be able to use those keywords in searches and just make it easier to find any photo in my collection. Now, in doing that, that's the benefit of one of these cataloging softwares like Lightroom, is that, it makes it very easy to find photos. Now, me, for example, I organized all my photos by location, so I can go to the location and I can find everything from Miami, Florida, for example, or I can, find it that way. I used collections here to be able to say, everything that's like landscape photos, or all my flower and plant photography type stuff, or, black and white or whatever. Now, because of that, I can find pretty much any photo very quickly and easily. Either I'll remember a location, or the subject matter, or I can, it's very easy. That's the benefit of using a cataloging software. So when I first started, when I had so many photos, the idea of being able to go through and set up keyword tags, or even more so like GPS coordinate data or whatever, the thought of doing that many photos was just overwhelming. But once I was able to delete down my images and get them down to, some of the better ones, I was able to dedicate the time to go through and properly keyword everything. And now that I'm down to, around 1,200 images, I did spend the time to go through and actually keyword pretty much everything. So, it's very easy for me to, find anything. I can just type in deer and get all images of deer, for example. It's very cool way to be able to organize your photos. And I wanted to talk about the hidden benefits of deleting these images, because for years I just kept all the images I'd ever shot, and some of them were out of focus and some of them were just not that great. And doing this has allowed me to concentrate on, okay, I have these images in my catalog, and I'm able to concentrate on, what do I need to add an image to my catalog that is going to be competitive and useful compared to other photos I've already taken. I can look at very quickly and say, what, these are the type of images that I have in my landscape photography catalog, and I know when I come across a situation that I want to take a photo different from this. So, like for example here, whenever I took these images, I went to the desert in Peru, in Huacachina, Peru, and I was able to get this type of image because I already knew in my head, oh, what, I want some sand dune photos, I want something like this, I want it like, I had a concept in my mind that when I went there, I was going to take some images like that. So now, that's helped me, allow me to be more productive, to be more exacting in the field, and to know exactly what I want to do. So, for example, if I go somewhere and the lighting's not great, then I'm very likely to not be able to use certain photos or whatever the case may be. Now, I don't want you to use this as an excuse to just sort of allow this to be an impediment to your creativity. So there's a balance there that you need to find to allow you to still be spontaneous and creative while still being able to keep your eye on the ball and be able to think, okay, what can elevate my photography from where I'm at now to where I really want to be and where I want to go. For me, that's about expanding the type of photos that I have, expanding my collection, and take something that just sort of can outdo what I already have done in the past. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and talk about how that process has really helped me out. And, hopefully it can inspire some of you guys to go through and make it possible for you to find all your images quick and easy, to, delete some old images that you would never use or show to anybody. I mean, if you're ashamed to show it, why keep it around on a hard drive for your whole life or whatever? So I would just say that this has made me, much more productive, made me able to really see my photos for what they are. The hardest images for me to go through and delete were the oldest ones that I took, the ones that I thought were so cool back in the day when I first started. I had some nostalgia about it, I thought it was great. But then later on you realize, okay, if I'm looking at this objectively, this image does not compare against, something else that I've shot, later on, or whatever the case may be. So it's important to do that. Some stuff, if you're keeping it just for nostalgia purposes, maybe, I export it out of Lightroom or whatever and just keep a JPEG somewhere or whatever the case may be. Every person is different, your workflow is different, but I wanted to share my process of what I've done here and see if it can help you in some way. Maybe it encourages you to, go forth. One thing I will say is, because of doing this, I've been able to, get my catalog to all fit on a laptop so that when I travel, I can actually, keep all these 1,200 images plus whatever I shoot over the next, so many weeks or months, no problem, and I can keep it all on the laptop and travel with it, and that makes it, very nice and very easy. So that's just something that I wanted to share with you, and hopefully you can take some inspiration from that and decide if this is something that you want to do for yourself. Everybody is different, but I hope this will help you out. Take care, guys.